Here, and this is the ninth edition of Olly Ranks, where I will be ranking Season 9 of Classic Doctor Who. So, Season 9 is John Pertwee's third season and is pretty much very similar to Season 8, but units are only used in the first and last stories of this season, so we do get to see more Dr. Joe moments, and thus we get some more out of Earth stories as we did in Season 8's Colony in Space. If you're not familiar with how Olly Ranks works, I'll be ranking my 5 least for the 5 stories or there's X number of stories in the season from my least favorite to my favorite story of a season, and I'll explain my ranking of this story. Place we have the Time Monster. Not exactly the worst story ever, and is definitely a decent story, but it doesn't really deserve a lot of the warranted heat it gets. The plot was good, but it did have some unneeded innuendo such as Tom Tit, especially with the emphasization of tit. It wasn't really needed at all. The acting was good. We get a nice scene with Pertwee and Manning in the prison cell when the doctor was telling Joe about his when he was in Gallifrey as a youngster about when he met a hermit who was explaining to him about the meaning of life or something like that. The unit family were used well, and I like that. Yates was good, Benton was good, and good. I like the part when Benton confronted the master when he realized that that the master was pretending to be the brigadier. Then obviously it leads to him getting turned into a baby, and then returning as an adult where everyone saw his meat and two veg. At the end of the story, the master was okay. Not his best performance, but he was an intimidating villain. Good visuals. Kronos was interesting enough, and I'll give that story a 7 out of 10. And coming up in fourth place is The Day of the Daleks. The Daleks make their long awaited return since 1967, and they came back with a minor bang. The Daleks were okay in the story, considering the fact there were only 3 Dalek props. It did make the story look a bit weird, especially with the big battle of Orderly House in the end of episode 4, which pretty much was like it took place in the last few minutes of this episode 4, and it was very rushed. And then Audio House blew up. The Doctor and Joe were talking to Reginald Stiles, and that was pretty much it for that story. And plus, the Daleks did sound very weird and did put me off the story a bit. And plus, as I mentioned before, the Orderly House battle between the Daleks, the Ogrons, and it did seem a bit rushed, and then the conclusion was rushed as well. The special edition that was released with the DVD in 2011 does fix the issue of the Dalek voices, which Nicholas Briggs dubs the Daleks' voices in that story, and it has had more special effects and the Daleks, and I added more Daleks digitally to make this battle look a bit better. I like the trio of guerrilla fighters. The Doctor and Joe were okay. The unit family were okay, even though they didn't really have much to do because most of the story took place in the 22nd century. So I give the story a 7 out of 10 as well. In third place, we have the Mutants. I say that the Mutants is the hidden gem of this season. The plot was really good. I liked how the inspiration of the South African apartheid came about in the story, and I liked the themes that were used in the story, such as racial prejudice, colonialism, imperialism, genocide, and evolution. I liked how they were all featured and how they were able to work side by side with the plot of the story. The Doctor and Joe were great. Yeah, I really liked the side character of Cotton. He was pretty cool. The Marshal was a very great evil villain and really helped with the story. And I liked the Solonian mutants. They were rather frightening, and I liked that. And also like they were pretty much harmless as well because of a botched mutation. And Kai was the mutation slash evolution. And Kai, who was also a Solonian, he was able to achieve the proper mutation and was able to like mutate and evolve into this angelic like character. And I didn't really like how it was used to kill the Marshal to secure the great quick victory. Good production, very enjoyable, very underrated, criminally underrated, I must say, and I give the Mutants an 8 out of 10. In second place, we have the Curse of Peladon. Great story, great plot. I love the political aspects that were in the story, as this story was based on the UK's entry into the EU back in the 70s. The politics made the story rather interesting, as it was about Peladon entering the Galactic Federation, pretty much Doctor Who's equivalent of the EU. The acting was really good. I liked Pertwee in the story. I liked the fight he had with Gron, who was King Peladon's champion at episode 3, and then that's when the whole plan was of the villains was came about and was revealed, and that cliffhanger. Jo had some good moments as well. I liked how she was pretending to be this Earth governor, no Earth princess, as to oversee the whole intro into the Galactic Federation. And she does have a bit of a romantic plot with King Peladon. I liked how the Ice Warriors weren't really villainous at all, as they merely wanted to ensure Peladon entered the Galactic Federation, and I liked how they were set up to be villains, because the Doctor met the Ice Warriors before. He did not have a pleasant time with them. And it turns out the actual villains was Hepesh, the High Priest of Peladon. He didn't want Peladon, the planet, to enter the Galactic Federation because he thought they would exploit Peladon, and obviously Arcturus, from the planet Arcturus, he wanted Peladon to enter the Galactic Federation because the planet of Arcturus was very poor in minerals, and he wanted to exploit the minerals of Peladon as well. Overall, it's a fun political story, and I gave it that story a 9 out of 10.